Dave, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing?
Good. Excited to connect and have you walk us through your take on how our customers can focus on innovation, renewal, and recovery.
Right on.
For me, it feels like I've lived 2 years in the last 3 months. My hair has grown for the last 4 months, so my wife actually finally got it last night. For once, it's the most stressful 45 minutes of my life, both her and I.
Yeah.
So last 3 months have been crazy with the rapid speed of change and the nutso roller coaster ride that probably everybody feels like they've been on.
Yeah. It's been interesting to say the least, Scott. It's forced us all to move out of our comfort zone, and not just us as business leaders, as sales leaders, as sales representatives. People who are carrying the bag. It's pushed us into another realm and a different way of doing things. But it's also shifted people out of their comfort zones as far as purchasing, right? So the clients, like, this could be something brand new for people, kind of like some are calling it the great accelerator of how we're moving into different ways that people are purchasing. So, as business leaders, as we're trying to revamp and get into this whole mindset of innovation and renewal, we may have to check our ego at the door, right? Because the way we've been successful in the past, our ego's been taking a shot. So we got a lot at stake, not just financial. I think confidence is going to be a big, big player here that we have at stake, as far as our own confidence in our plan of how we're doing things, confidence in employers, employees, and even customers' confidence as we're trying to, reopen and get things going again and possibly a different method. So that's pretty much something really important that we got to look at as far as what's at stake now.
For sure. And I know, Dave, both of our companies have been in an interesting position over the last couple of months. From a stat flow side of things, not only have we had to do a complete risk assessment on our own business in order to come out stronger, but we've also been working quite closely with our customers to help them identify how to maintain those solid relationships throughout the last few months. And more importantly, the shift now is on, now what? How do we help our customers supercharge their businesses as quickly as possible? And I think this is the only sales pitch I will do, and it's more just an overview of who Stafflow is, and then we'll get right into the stuff people actually want to listen to. Stafflow is all about creating that one-to-one local touch point within a customer's journey. We ingest a whole bunch of data to help our retail customers understand who to contact and why, and empower their reps to really have those one conversations. And it's been really cool to just see how our customers have really leveraged Stafflow over the last couple months, integrated that within their own unique entry points, from buy online pickups on reserve online pickup in store, and really leveraging the one-to-one outreach. So it's been pretty cool to see how our customers have pivoted over the last couple months.
No, it's really cool, and I'm actually so honored to be here and to see that. I'm going to say this. It's going to sound weird, but the pride that I have watching you guys grow, because obviously, Scott, you and I have been working very closely together and have seen the evolution of Stafflow from the beginning, way back when, years ago. It feels like years ago, geez, and where you guys are today. And I'm a big advocate, and I truly believe in your guys' product and what it can bring to the people using it, and how it adds to the relationship with the customers, and something I'll talk about later of the value of the relationship that we have. I think you guys got something that's really, really cool, really amazing.
That's awesome. Thanks, Dave. And just as we get into this, if anybody has any questions, I think Alex might have posted something in the messenger. Throw the questions in there. Dave and I will answer them throughout this conversation, and hopefully you guys get something out of this. I would challenge everybody. I think there's a broad mix of folks on the call, from frontline reps to business owners. Really take what Dave's saying from an individual standpoint, what you can do from an individual perspective, as well as how you can impact yourself as an individual, as a leader, and potentially as a business owner.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Scott. And I just want everybody to know that the things that I'm going to share, the tips and tricks and all that stuff I'll share with you guys, I've positioned it in a way that you can integrate that into whatever role that you're in. So I also want you guys to rest assured that the things that I'm going to share with you, are things that I do myself. They're things that I have done and I continue to do to myself. And it's one thing that we built our business on, and we're true to it, is that we never ask people to do things that we wouldn't do ourselves. So, I want you to know, and for some of those questions, to your point, Scott, if you guys have any questions, like, Dave, have you tried this? You mentioned this. Well, how has that worked for you? So on and so forth. By all means, leverage that. And later on, we'll talk about ways to ask different questions. But, I want everybody to know. So I guess we'll get right into it, Scott. What do you think?
Let's get into it.
All right. So as I transition this slide, and the reason I had this slide up for a couple of reasons. First, I received a few emails and a few text messages and actual calls of people who know me pretty well. It's like, David, in that blurb that you guys created, Scott and yourself, 40 plus years of experience. And like, man, I didn't know you were that old. And for everybody, and we're going to put this out there now, I am 45 years old. So some of you are like, how does that make sense, Dave? 40 plus years of experience. Well, let me explain. You see, I was born into extreme entrepreneurial family. See, my grandfather on my father's side started a business in the 20s, and business of 62 years. We were actually 57 years in the same location in one building, it's pretty phenomenal itself. But it was a business that did appliances, home furniture, and electronics, and the whole evolution of electronics, like televisions and stuff like that. And my grandfather on my mother's side had a grocery store. So, as you can imagine, every waking hour that we had in my family, the kids in the family we had, was spent pretty much in a store somewhere. So we got to witness a lot of cool things, like things that worked, things that didn't work, how to interact with customers, and just analyzing and trying to understand human behaviors. So, when I talk about the experience, this kind of gives you the idea, right? In 1989, I started a business called Baseline Productions, and I had met somebody, a family friend, asked me if I wanted to DJ, because I was into DJing, Scott, and probably something you don't know. I was actually DJing house parties and stuff like that back in the day, old school style, the big headphones, which is really cool. So someone said, hey, I own a bar. Do you think you can DJ at a bar? So I was underage, so I had to figure out a way to do it. So I hired someone, taught him how to DJ, and that was my first business. And it was great. It was fantastic. At one point, I had up to, I think it was about a dozen bars and restaurants in Montreal where I would hire DJs, teach them how to DJ, and I would place them there and give them the music and all that stuff. And in the 90s, mid-90s, was lucky enough to be part of two national startups, one Fido and a sister company, which was Espion. And that's where it kind of got into really the corporate world of things and trying to include everything you learn on the entrepreneur side into the corporate world, which morphed into another business I had started in Core Success, because I'm passionate about golf. You see my golf club's probably behind me. And we did golf course accessory distribution. So anything you would see on a golf course, you would never think of someone selling. We did, and we even had booths at the PGA show in Orlando. And if anyone's ever had the opportunity to go to that PGA show, it's one of the most exciting things as a golfer. It's like Disneyland for golf fans. So it's kind of crazy. And in 1999, I had this great idea with my brother. I wanted to get back into the family business. So we decided to start a training company where we would do sales training, manager training, and stuff like that, helping companies in growth mode and really revamp their sales processes and sales skills. And we lasted 20 years, and we were going strong. And within that time, in 2003, started another business with my brother doing called Auto Cosmetics, doing high-end vehicle modifications, so aesthetic modifications on high-end cars like Rolls Royces, Porsches, and stuff like that. And 2017, started another business with my brother and I. We did there's actually a mobile platform called Edge Forms, where we, through our training with wireless dealers and wireless industry, we saw that customers were in a really good space and ready to move from archaic manual processes into digital and remove paper. So we started that business, which is still going, and we still have some very, very large customers across North America using the platform. And in 2019, started Pono Learning. And Pono Learning is a spinoff of Edge International. And, we built our culture around the concept of complexity is the enemy of execution. So, customers reach out to us, and we work with people who are looking to increase sales performance using authentic, relevant, effective training, coaching, and essentially sales enablement consulting. So, why am I sharing this with you? And this is really pertinent to where we're going to go with this, because through all of that, I was able to take the lessons I learned at a young age, with different failures and successes, and really put it into practice on a personal level with my personal businesses and even in the corporate world. And I learned a lot of lessons. First lesson I learned out of that, it's what does it take to compete on a daily basis, and what does it take to win, and not just win, but literally win one battle at a time, and realize that sometimes you're going to lose a few battles, or you have to lose a few battles to win the war. So that was one of the lessons. But one of the biggest lessons that I'm going to share with you, and this is probably something, if you guys want one thing to take away from this, I think this is it, that when you're in business, regardless of what role you're in, the biggest lesson is the only thing that's certain is uncertainty. And as a business owner, I can truly tell you that I've seen that life is just a series of seasons, and winter comes. Winter always comes, and trust me, I know about winter as probably you guys do. I'm in Montreal. It's much colder than Toronto, and much colder than some of our U.S. friends. It's cold, and winter's coming every single year, so you just got to brace for it. But I kind of make that correlation because in business, winter comes. So the storms do come. Now, it's not a question of if, it's more of a question of when. So that's one of the lessons I learned. And I also looked at things because I've got a very analytic approach to me, believe it or not, an analytic side to me, where I kind of look at things and try to understand the why. I try to understand the difference between successful and unsuccessful people when winter comes, right? And I noticed that successful people, it's not that they don't feel sorry for themselves, or it's not that they don't feel pain. It's that they refuse to allow themselves to stay in that state, remain in that state for a longer period of time. So it's a question of picking up your socks and going at it. And, I can tell you with confidence and with experience that winter does come. And I know this. And here's why I know this. Talk to you about my grandfather's business and furniture and appliances like Ashley Furniture or Leon's. And what happened was we were the gold standard. We were like the top dogs. I still have trophies and plaques for sales of televisions and record players, believe it or not, from way back when. And, 62 years, there were some storms. There was a few storms. Winter hit, but not a bad winter. But there was one big winter storm, and that season came in the mid-'80s when large surface stores came. And these big box stores came about, and what they did over that time is that they started to squeeze out the mom and pop shops. And I'll be honest, we were a mom and pop shop. And through that time, what they did is they just went for volume, and they squeezed the margins and forced companies or businesses like ours to kind of, you either weather the storm or was eliminated by it. And essentially what happened was my father, who was running the business at the time, decided, you know what, I'm just going to hold on tight, let the storm pass, because it's going to go back to normal. We're going to go back to normal. And the reality was normal wasn't necessarily working for that given time. But my father refused to make that move and shift from potentially, I don't know what the solution would have been, but maybe it was switching from more sales to service and try to, increase business and pivot at that point. But normal wasn't working. And what happened through that? We pretty much lost everything. The business was gone in a matter of 2 years. Why? Because my father, God rest his soul, never had the courage, or his ego took charge and said, you know what, I'm just going to stick to the grindstone and let this storm pass. This too shall pass was his motto. And unfortunately, it kind of caught up to everybody at the end. So as we did that, my brother and I, we said, you know what, coming out of that, we said, we may have lost that business and we may have lost everything in our world. But one thing we're never going to lose is that lesson. It's something that we brought to us when we started Edge International. And Edge International, like I said, 1999 we started, man, we were on top of the world. Life was great. And there was some storms, here and there, a couple winters. It's, Scott, you've known us for many years. There was a couple windy days and crazy snowy days, but what the season was,
just a few,
exactly. And things were great until at one point. And on January 18th, 2019, our world changed. The complete world changed in the time of a phone call. And that time of a phone call was when I received at 7 a.m. saying my brother had passed away from a massive heart attack. And that rattled everybody. It rattled everybody because, let's go back to the word ego. We thought we were invincible. Paul, more than I, for those of you who knew Paul, lived life at a different level. But reality hit pretty hard. And that's when I had to dig deep and go back to all of those learnings that I had, riding shotgun through all of those issues and all those problems that we had in our family business of the past. And I had to make a decision. See, I was faced with 3 doors. I had the choice of looking, and I make a parallel today, and hopefully you guys can make the same parallel. It might not be as extreme what you're living today as what I'm telling you about, but there was 3 doors. The first door was flee. I had the choice number 1 was flee, meaning I'm going to throw in the towel and waste all those life lessons that the universe had given me through growing up. And it would have been a crying shame that if we would have, or I would have decided to do that. Second door that I could have chosen was stay the course, kind of like my dad did, right? So it's just weather, hold on tight, let the storm pass, and essentially stick my head in the sand, which is, that's the way I see it. I would have been just slapping my head in the sand. The third door, which is the right door to take, was to adapt to the situation. Take it, live it, and not stay in that state for too long. Feel it, but start to move forward once you get into that space. So I realized that I either had to embrace that change or that was forced upon me, or essentially be eliminated by that change. So, and this is going to be the challenge for all of us on this call, including my business and your business, Scott. We're going to have to take the opportunity now to actually say this to ourselves. When you look at the way, or when you change, I should say, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Now, you see, if I put it into context, the way I'm looking at this storm or winter, this season that we're living of COVID-19, maybe it's time for me to kind of look at it differently, in the sense that rather than just stick my head in the sand, this is my opportunity to kind of put a pause on things and reevaluate, rejig, reinnovate, reinvent myself, and really focus on my business rebirth. Time Magazine, I saw recently, had the cover of Time Magazine. It alluded to the point that the largest COVID-19 has been the largest work from home experiment, which I found it pretty cool. But I don't want to just pigeonhole it as a work from home experiment. This is an experiment on business. It's an experiment on communication, teamwork, sales. Heck, this has been one of the largest leadership experiments in what I can remember, the time that I can remember. So it's quite a big challenge that we're living through. And the challenge that I'm going to share with you guys is to take the time to do that. I'm going to walk you guys now through some tangible steps that I have used and I still use today to really make sure that you are setting yourself for success to come out of this on the right side of recovery, so that when the green light goes, we're not spinning our tires, it's staying in place, that you're actually moving forward. And, everybody says, oh, we're in this together. And we are in this together, by the way. And I don't ever want to say the contrary, but, we're all in the same storm, but we're not necessarily all in the same boat. So I think that's a really important thing to share with you guys, because the storm is here. Winter is here. But my boat is very different than yours, Scott, and could be very different from the other folks we have on the call today. So, I want you to take the steps I'm going to walk you guys through and put context around it. And like I mentioned at the beginning, and Scott, you alluded to it, everything we're going to talk about today can be applied at multiple levels of the organization or business. So I'm breaking it down into 4 steps. The first thing, we're going to talk about the changes, right? What has COVID-19 done for you? What are the human factors that I got to address? What is my mindset returning to the market? And then once I get my mindset, the fourth and last step is getting prepared to hit the ground running, to make sure I get that I go to market and I'm ready to sell. So here we go. All right. And this is a time where if you got a pen and a pad, go grab that, write this stuff down, and we can take a look at contextual aspects of it a little later. So the first step I'm going to share with you guys, first thing, changes. Okay. We got to take a step back, take one step away from the trees to look at the forest. All right. So we got to take an honest look, pause, and look at the changes that have happened in our business. So the fundamental changes. So it's going to be 2 buckets. What has changed during COVID-19, but we'll be back to the old way. So what's changed, but we'll go back. What's changed during COVID-19, but will never be the same. So thing you need to remember here, guys, is that this is going to be a living, breathing exercise, meaning this is going to change regularly. What could be reality today may be extremely different next week, because as we all know, this changes weekly. This situation we're in changes weekly. Heck, it changes daily. All right. So you never know where we're going to be with this storm tomorrow or next week. So this is an exercise I'm going to urge you guys to do. All right. Because this is going to set us up for where we're going to go in our next steps. What you need to do on a daily, weekly basis. If it need be daily, then do it daily. So that's the first thing. All right. And be honest and do it regularly. That's the first thing. This is the easy one. What are the changes? Now, the second component, or the second step, I should say, is the human factor. Now, the human factor is going to be split into three components. Okay, I've got myself, I've got my team, and then I've got my client. So I'm going to start with myself, and this is applicable to me as a business owner. It's applicable to me as a sales manager, an executive, a sales rep. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. So me, myself, and here's the checklist. Number one is, what do I do well? What is something that's a natural skill for me? Something that I really succeed at, and it's just natural. I don't even think about it. I wake up in the morning, I just do it. So what do I do well? And once I figure out what I do well, what can I double down on? In the sense that what can I actually put more emphasis on it, not focus on the things I'm not really good at, and actually make a difference in how I'm running my business or how I'm running my client list, my funnel, regardless. And to help you with that exercise, try to think for a second, what are the things that I miss from what I did pre-COVID versus what are the things I do not miss pre-COVID? Here's the example. First thing, I don't miss. Here's what I do miss. Okay, here's the first thing I do miss. I miss live sessions. I miss standing in front of groups like yourselves and having this chat. I truly miss that human connection. This is great, but it just doesn't feel the same. That's what I miss. What I don't miss. This is what I don't miss. I don't miss O'Hare Airport, and I think some of you can relate to that. Scott, you could probably relate to that. I think we may have
many missed flights there and delayed flights. Yes.
Yeah. So you and I maybe have missed flights at the same time together. But O'Hare is one thing. But in all honesty, on business side, what do I do miss? I do miss meetings that could have been emails, and that's something we can all relate to, right? To the point earlier, this has been a huge experiment. So that's something that I want you to keep in mind. So use that as an exercise, okay? That's one of the aspects to it. The third bullet I have here, is there an area where I have built momentum during COVID-19? So this is the example. This is what I mean. Are there Band-Aid solutions that I had to come up with because of COVID-19 that you haven't yet realized, holy smokes, that's something we could really work on? That's something that we could actually take, you get that aha moment, that we could take and put it into our day-to-day in real life once things go back to functioning. I don't want to say normal, but functioning into a different level. So what can I take? Where did I have that aha moment? Or sometimes you're too busy. You're just spinning wheels to actually think about it. You have to take a step back. The last thing is, what was I doing pre-COVID-19 that was not a great investment of my time? So this is what I call the great spring cleaning. After winter, what do we do? When winter passes, weather gets nice, we do a spring cleaning. So take that same analogy and do a spring cleaning of what you were doing pre-COVID-19. That was it gutted your energy, it drained you of energy, and it essentially drained you of time. So take a hard look at that, and maybe there's some things that you can eliminate from what you're doing, or delegate, or give it to somebody else who has the time and has the skill to do it.
And Dave, it's all awesome feedback. I think it's interesting in staff flow over the last couple months. A few folks have really stepped outside of their comfort zone and really shown skill sets they may not have known they had just based on the situation. It's been really cool to see the instant growth of certain folks on the team as they've gone through this exercise or been forced to go through this exercise. Yeah,
that's a great way to put it. You were forced, right? It wasn't necessarily a choice.
Yeah.
Which leads me to the next component, to the team, Scott, and great segue. Thank you. We didn't even rehearse that.
Next.
the 3 points on the team. So once I've done that myself, I got a good understanding. And again, you can do this over and over. But my team, I got to look at my team. And first thing I need to look at, does my team have the right attitude? Now, if my team has the right attitude, let me put it this way. Today, more than ever, everybody's in sales. Everybody's in sales. I don't care if you are you're doing back office stuff, if you are doing stock, whatever. It doesn't matter. Everybody who touches a customer or works with a customer is in sales, because that's how important it is now to show our customers what we're all about. To your point, Scott, maybe there are some surprise leaders in your team. I know some people that I've been talking to has been really shocked. They're like, you know what? There's a couple of people that I had on the fast track to leadership positions that, they were the stars, but that star has faded over this difficult time. through this challenging time. And there's some people that they never thought would be leaders are stepping up to the challenge, are rising to the challenge. And it'll be really interesting to see if you guys do this exercise. Maybe there's some surprises out there that you really didn't expect. Wayne Dyer, who I love Wayne Dyer, some of you know that I'm a big fan of Wayne Dyer. I actually quoted him on the last couple slides ago. He was saying that, human beings are like oranges. When you squeeze an orange, what comes out of the orange? Well, it's the juice, it's the insides, right? It's the real insides. Human beings are similar in the sense that when you're put into a pressure situation, such as we're living today, out of our comfort zone and attacking our ego, what that does is that it pulls out the true inside of somebody. It pulls it out, and then we start to see what are they really made of. So it could be a good exercise for you guys who are team leaders, to really get a grasp of what's the true inside of each person, and not just on a political side, but the real deal. Second thing, are they playing in the right position? So example, do I have someone who I put into a customer service nurturing role that just doesn't like to nurture? They'd be more of a hunter style than a farmer style. And just because you were looking for somebody and you like that person, you needed someone who is a farmer, and you said, I need this person on my team because they were great in an interview. Well, maybe now's the time that you could kind of look at things. Okay, well, all right, bud, I love you. You're awesome. Let's try you over here because I think you have the intangibles. You have something that's special. So take the time. And I look at it on a sports aspect. It's like taking Tom Brady and having Brady play wide receiver, right? And for those of you guys who are a Patriots fan, I know you might not want to talk about Brady right now, but it's, you put Tom Brady a wide receiver, the dude runs a 40-yard dash in 4 days. It'd probably not be ideal, but something to think about. Okay, it's a little comic kind of correlation to that. And the last thing is, if there are gaps, try to figure out if it's, and this is a checklist that I provide to people and I suggest people use. Is it know-how, competency, or obstacles? Okay. Now, know-how means training. Do they have the know? Have I trained them? Do they just need a little more training to get better at what they do? Okay. If I've trained them, okay, can they actually do it? Is it something that they're good at? To my point earlier, hunter, farmer. And if I check that box, well, maybe they're not able to succeed because there's obstacles. Maybe I, as business owner, business leader, team leader, are not providing them with the tools that they need to succeed. So that's the look in the mirror, and maybe that's an opportunity for you to step up your game.
Yeah, and it's cool just, to put it in my own perspective. I had the philosophy that now is the time to actually level up and really make sure we have everything in place. And so, the teams really come back and said, here's the specific tools and processes that we need to put in place. They've already thought through what it looks like. They've put it together and then come back and say, okay, here's what it looks like. Does this make sense? Yes or no? And I think that's been really cool. So it's not just so much, do you have the right people on the team, but also have you empowered them to put the right processes and structure in place? Because I am, for those that I support and that work at staff, I'm not the most process-driven individual. The rest of the team kind of makes up that gap for me, and they've really come through with some different ways to really shift our entire customer and revenue team forward as we get out of this in the next month or two.
Yeah, interesting. Last component, Scott, is the customers, the human factor of the customer side. And this is 3 simple steps. First thing I need to look at is my target market still a viable option? So are they still there? As we're reopening, is that ideal profile still there and ready to spend money? And if he's not, well, then I'd be crazy to just send my team out there to try to find that person and hunt them out if they're just not there. I think that would be foolish, obviously. I don't need to reiterate that point. So that's the first thing you need to do. Second thing you need to do is really take a look at things and say, is my offer and what I'm going to market with, is it tone deaf to the new reality of what's going on right now? When I hear that, when I wrote this, I first thing that came to my mind was my grandfather, who used to tell me all the time. He's like, Dave, don't be that guy who's whistling at a funeral. And and some of you are laughing because you probably hear some of my crazy one-liners that I throw all the time. That comes from way back of my grandparents and silly things that they used to say. Well, silly but pertinent. But don't be the guy whistling at a funeral. So what I mean, don't be tone deaf. Don't go be trying to ask for a major cash investment for a customer to buy something who have been dark for the past 3 months. A friend of mine who's a real estate agent, not a real estate agent, sorry, thinking of somebody else, a travel agent. A travel agent So travel, her agency is pretty much ground to a halt, like boom, stop dead. So I think of that instance of that person. If I go to them and say, hey, I want you to invest a boatload of cash on something, which it will help you, maybe, maybe not. But I think you should invest in it. That's a little tone deaf. So do an evaluation, this evaluation process to make sure that you're not tone deaf to the situation. Don't be that guy whistling at a funeral or gal whistling at a funeral. And the last step is, have I fallen off the mind map? I call it a mind map during COVID-19. So have I been out of touch? So look at some of your customers that you have. Have you spoken to them in the last 3 months? If you haven't, you might want to get on that, because today, right now in the world that we're in, we need to fight for every customer. We need to fight for every dollar of revenue, just like we did at the beginning, just like we did when we started our business. I remember the expression that rings true in my ear all the time. If you always did, or if you always do what you did at the beginning of a relationship, there will never be an end. So it goes back to that whole courtship, right? So think of that saying, think of that expression. So am I doing the things, courting my existing customer base and making sure that we're in touch on a regular basis, which kind of leads to what you guys do, Scott, and reaching out to them and making sure that, hey, listen, I cherish your business. I'm still there, and I hope you're still there too.
Yeah, and I think that's fantastic. And I really do. We chatted about this a few weeks ago, that you're really starting to see this localized groundswell, whether it's in Toronto or other provinces, states, parts of North America, where it really is all about this localized approach. Yeah. Are you buying from Sam and Sue down the street? Do you know that person? How do you help each other get through this? I think that's critical now, and it's also critical as we shift out of this over the next couple months. I think that will continue to be there, is that human factor in customers. How can you ensure that you will have that one-to-one local personalized approach to those interactions as best you can?
Yep, absolutely. Third step out of the 4, guys, this is really quick. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but this is something that I've used in the past when I've evaluated, after a winter storm, after winter has come, the season is gone, as I'm preparing for the season to leave. What are the 5 buckets? So 5 buckets of how do I classify, how do I rank the services and the products that I'm going to or bringing to the table? So you need to look at it and say, okay, all these product services I have in my portfolio, where does it rank? Is it best in class, meaning I am the top dog, better than everybody else? Is it world class, meaning I'm in the top tier? Is it strong, meaning I'm a little bit above the competition, I'm a little bit stronger, but we're pretty similar? Good enough, meaning, I can get by with it, but maybe I can do better if I kind of outsource it to someone else, type of thing. Or is something that I remove 100% from my strategy post-quarantine as we rebirth? So, I won't dig deep in there, but the only thing I will say in this regard, guys, is that even when you do this exercise, it may be a good idea to do an internal audit, in the sense that get your people, get your team to do it. So if you're doing this, have your scoring, but also challenge yourself. And this is, talk about ego. This is another time when you might have to put your ego in check. Have your team do this in regards to your products and services, and then compare it. And it might be an interesting exercise, sometimes shocking, to see where you see it versus where the people who are in the front line see it. So food for thought as you're rolling this out.
Yeah, Dave, that's a great idea, to really have the rest of the team focus on that coming weeks.
Yeah, I think, and it's really important to make sure also that we're all on the same page. Step number 4, guys, this is the last step, all right? This is getting prepared to go to market, to get back out there and start selling again, and separate it into 3 buckets, all right? Customer outreach being number 1. Obviously, we're on here. Stafflo, you guys are awesome at it, probably the best. If you look at those 5 buckets, you're probably the best in class. Probably, you are the best in class. But here's something to remember, okay, guys? And this is coming from experience in a personal side and a business side. People will always remember who was there during the difficult times. So if you haven't reached to your customer, you haven't spoken to them, not even to say, hey, what's up? How you doing? Are we all good? That, unfortunately, may be putting your relationship and everything in jeopardy. You see, connection, keeping connected, remaining connected, will increase trust. Trust will increase your relationships, and then your relationships will essentially lead into more sales. All right, it's a simple equation. So think about it that way. And number 1 is outreach. I think we have a great tool at our disposal here. We all use it. We all love it. But there's other ways as well, right? Phone is one, using those staff lists and stuff like that. So there's multiple ways of doing it. But regardless of which one you choose, make sure you are doing something. You have to move and you have to do something. Second part of that is community involvement. And then I want you guys to write this down. This is huge. This is important. It is time to move from being interesting to being interested. Someone told me that the other day, and I was like, well, I almost fell off my chair. That is strong. So move from being interesting to being interested. Now, what do I mean by interested? Like, I think of social media. First thing comes to my social media. Social media, oh, look at me, look at me, look at me. I need to shift that rather than look at me. Hey, enough about me. Let's talk about you, right? That kind of cliche. So keep in mind, and as you're looking at community involvement, I have two great examples I'll share with you. That has nothing to do with wireless. I know everyone here is from basically wireless background. Most of us are from wireless. But there's a local coffee shop not too far from here in my neighborhood called, the name of it's September Cafe. And a couple of weeks ago, they went ahead and on social media and they said, hey, all day today, Saturday, we are giving free sandwiches and coffee to everybody. The amount of people they had was absurd. It was insane. And they said, we're not going to charge anything. We're not going to charge anything for the sandwiches and coffee. You donate whatever you want to donate. And they took all 100% of the proceeds and gave it to the Old Brewery Mission. And that's Old Brewery Mission here in Montreal is a homeless shelter. And what that did, it got people going, motivated and got that sense of community again. I go there today. I'll drive by later on, and there's people in line outside for takeout, for coffee. And get this, there's a Starbucks right across the road, literally 100 feet, not even 100 feet across the road, which is a super, super way to get involved back with the community. Another one is a client of mine, a UPS store in Stowe, Vermont. The owner of that franchise there, he has got one kid who graduated from high school, 2 from university. He decided to actually create, because his kids were going to miss that whole procession of that graduation ceremony, to make kind of like you'd see with election signs. And he printed every student's name on it. He had his logo on the bottom, obviously, but every student's name, and he planted them all the way down Main Street. So as people were driving back and forth, kind of get that feeling of procession, to give the kids graduating something that was, that somewhat of that feeling. All right. So those are two, I'm not saying to do that, but those are great examples to think outside of the box. And the last one is the call to action. Now, call to action, Scott and you and I were talking about this. Call to action can be looked at different ways. It could be a promo, it could be a rebate, could be coupons, something that's going to get the customer motivated to get off their couch and either go to the computer to buy or come to your store to buy. Now, there's another aspect to it. Scott, you and I were talking about that. Yeah. Also, portraying and sharing with people what are the barriers you have lifted and friction you have removed for customers to come in and purchase, which I think is important.
Yeah, that's Dave. I think that's all awesome feedback. I think even on the telco side, B-Mobile, one of the dealers in North Dakota, they've done a killer job with a lot of their community involvement. Whether it's, can't remember all the details, but the gift cards where they're giving gift cards out for local restaurants, really being active in the community. That's just one example that popped to my head, popped to the top of my head. But I think it's really tying all those three together around. Done a great job engaging customers through customer outreach, been part of the community. And then there is that call to action of, hey, we're doing good, but we're also removing as many barriers as possible through some of their different strategies. So again, I think that's where it's a really cool way to look at how do you really become part of that community, become local, have those one-to-one interactions, and make sure that there's reason for those customers to be interacting with you.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And I've actually had I've been following B-Mobile as well and seeing some of the things that they've been putting out there on social media and some of the things that they have done. It's fantastic. So if anybody on here from B-Mobile, I tip my hat to you. Great job and keep it up. So well done. So here's what I'm going to do. And this is probably the last slide worth of content value. Well, everything's valuable, but content and steps that I'm going to share with you. Okay. Think the 4 steps is getting you prepared. Right? Once we get back to where the world is pushing us, the universe is pushing us, this is an exercise that I suggest that you guys do on a quarterly basis. In my businesses, this is something that we sit around the table and we do regularly. And I call it the crisis resistance plan. And it comes from a concept called CANI. So that's constant, never ending improvement. So there's a couple of categories in here. All right. And I'll go through this real quick because we may be a little tight on time. First thing, do an honest evaluation. So basically what I mean by that is know where you really are and create a roadmap how to get there. When I make that analogy with some people, I try to explain them when I'm leaving Montreal and I want to go to Miami because I want a vacation on the beach. There's a big difference from having a roadmap and knowing exactly where I got to go versus, hey, I'm just going to head south. So whatever I see in the S or south, I'm going there. But I realize if I want the ocean, there's a tremendous difference between Scottsdale and Miami. So make sure that I have that roadmap. That's the first thing. So create that roadmap and then double check it. Make sure on a quarterly basis if you're actually hitting those points. Constant strategic innovation. And innovation is not just technological, okay? A lot of people right away, they'll think innovation and think, oh, technology. It's a little bit more than that. A little bit more than that. There's, aspects of pricing that you could change, margins that you can relook at, processes, a lot of different things and not just technology. Any shift and change and reinvention that you do is innovation. So just to make sure that that's clear, that word innovation, we always have that trigger to technology. Constant anticipation. I think anticipation is going to be the greatest differentiator right now in businesses. If you can anticipate where the market is going, where the world is going, where your customer, your ideal profile is going, that's going to be key, folks. Now, Wayne Gretzky, for us, Canadians or hockey fans in the US, Wayne Gretzky, the gray one, always said, what's your secret? And he said, I always go where the puck is going, not where the puck is. So that kind of rings to that whole anticipation at level. So he tries to get himself in an open spot to anticipate the play, not just chase the puck like a dog chasing a ball. Next thing we have that I suggest that you do is constant optimization and always looking for ways to better yourself. Don't get complacent. Complacency will kill you. Make sure that you continue investing in yourself, investing in your team. Now, it could be on courses, it could be technology, it could be health. Health is obviously, and not just physical health, mental health as well, all right, guys? That's really something that's important, and look at that honestly. And last but not least is constant creating fans. And the true measure of customer satisfaction, Scott, you may have heard me say this many times, is not just, someone says, hey, thanks, good job. It's repeat and referral business. So the moment that customer comes back to buy from you or sending you people, that's when you know you've done a great job. And that's what I call creating a raving fan. They're always talking about you. So this is my crisis resistance plan, guys. And I think I read over here that Alex is going to send you guys the presentation. I don't know if I read that real quick, but anyway, if you guys want this, reach out to me and I will send it to you or walk you guys through that if need be. So that's the last piece I'm going to give you. And I'll leave you guys with this. And this is a saying, okay? This is really pertinent in where we're living right now. The pessimist complains about the wind. The optimist expects it to change. The realist adjusts the sails, okay? My last thing I'm going to throw at you guys is don't get distracted by getting back to normal. That whole mindset of we got to get back to normal is going to be a distraction. And we have no control over what's going to happen to get back to normal. Regardless of what happens, this thing's got a life of its own. It's got a mind of its own. Rather than being distracted by getting back to normal, get to working on making yourself better. And once you get yourself better, make sure you're solid on becoming crisis resistant so that when winter comes again, you may not fall into this trap of where we are today. I think that's one of the biggest messages I can share with you guys going forward. Here's what I'm going to offer you guys, and this is my call to action. Okay, you have my contact info in there, and what I'm going to offer you guys, anybody who's on this call or on this webinar right now, I'm going to offer you guys 1 hour of consultation. And now it doesn't matter if you're a dealer principal, business owner, sales representative, vice president. For me, it matters. It does zero, nothing. If you want help, if you want to put more context around some of the things I've shared with you, because we flew through it, I want you guys to look down here. I'm going to point. I don't know if you guys can see it. There's a green button there. All right, as Scott's closing it up, and we're filling any questions that may come up. I want you to click on there. Book your hour with Dave. Okay, that's going to lead you to your email, and you're going to be able to type out an email, say your contact info, and then maybe, you know, what you want to chat about, if there's something I can help you with. And I'll reach back out to you and we'll set up some time and we'll either get on a video. You know, I love video, it's that human side. We great interaction, call, and then we'll go from there. So anybody who's on there, it doesn't matter. I'm going to give you guys 1 hour chat. Let's shoot the breeze, and hopefully we can help you guys out, put some context around some of the things we've been talking about.
Dave, thanks for your time.
Thank you guys for the opportunity, and thank you all for joining on. It's a pleasure talking to you guys, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thanks.